Okay, let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to dig into something that's pretty relevant to a lot of folks out there. The EB2-NIW visa, and more specifically, the National Interest Waiver. So picture this. You've got these amazing skills, tons of ambition, and this dream to contribute to the U.S. The NIW is kind of like that hidden door to making it happen, but gotta say, it's got a pretty complicated lock on it. And that's what we're here to unlock today. We're going to break down those NIW requirements, figure out what this whole national interest thing actually means.
It's surprising how many people don't realize the NIW waiver actually has higher approval rates than some employment-based visas. Really goes to show how much weight they put on the potential impact of the applicant's work.
Higher approval rates. Wow, that is interesting. Okay, so before we get too far, let's back up for a second. For anyone totally new to this whole thing, what exactly is a national interest waiver? Our sources do lay it out, but sometimes, legal jargon can be a bit much to decipher.
Right. In essence, the National Interest Waiver, NIW for short, lets you kind of sidestep the whole labor certification process. Usually that's a must-have for employment-based visas. It's almost like they're saying, hey, your work is so important to the U.S., we're going to put you on the fast track.
So no need to go through that whole process of proving that hiring you wouldn't be a disadvantage to American workers.
Exactly. The NIW is basically saying that some contributions are so unique and so needed, they're willing to bend the rules a bit.
That is interesting. So you've really got to bring something special to the table, huh? Our sources break it down into three main criteria. To prove your work's in the national interest, you've got substantial merit, national interest, of course, and position to advance. Let's unpack those a bit, shall we?
Absolutely, let's do it.
First up, substantial merit. Now, this isn't just about being good at what you do. It's about being at the top of your game. Our sources mention things like medical breakthroughs, but what else would fall under that?
Think solutions to climate change, groundbreaking tech advancements, really anything pushing the boundaries.
Okay, so we're talking next level stuff. I tried to invent a self-folding laundry machine a while back, but didn't quite make the cut for substantial merit, I guess.
Well, innovation comes in many forms. But yeah, in this case, it's got to be work that's truly exceptional, something that has the potential to make a real impact,
High bar.
Yeah.
So you've got to be doing groundbreaking work. What about national interest? That one seems very broad.
It is broad, but there's a point to it, right? Think of it this way. How does your work benefit the entire nation? Could be anything from improving healthcare access in underserved areas to, say, boosting national security through cybersecurity.
So making the U.S. a better, stronger place, it's not just about you succeeding, it's about the bigger picture, right? What about that third piece, position to advance? That sounds like it's all about the person applying.
Exactly. That one's all about you. It's about showing you're not just imagining this impact, you're actually the one to make it happen.
So it's a mix of your expertise, your past achievements, your potential, all coming together to basically say, I'm the one who can make this a reality.
You got it. It's like convincing USCIS that you're not all talking. You're actually out there doing the work and you're ready to take it even further.
Starting to sound like a recipe for success, huh? Groundbreaking work, clear national benefit, and the right person to make it all happen.
You nailed it. But just having the right ingredients doesn't mean you can bake the cake, right? You need the evidence to back it all up, which actually leads perfectly into our next section.
Right, so we've got our ingredients for a successful NIW application. But how do you actually prove you can meet these, pretty high standards?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to say you're doing amazing work, but you need the proof to back it up.
So what kind of proof are we talking about? Our sources mention publications. How much weight do those actually carry?
Imagine this. You've got your research published in a top-tier journal in your field. Now that's what I call substantial merit. Or maybe you've secured patents for some game-changing invention.
Okay, yeah, those would definitely fall under groundbreaking work. What about things like, professional memberships or affiliations? Do those matter at all?
They can, especially if they're those really selective organizations, the ones that only accept people who've really made a mark in their field. It all comes back to proving that position to advance piece, right?
So let's say I'm a software developer who's built this app that's totally changing online education. And I've been recognized by some big tech association for that work. Those are all things I'd want to highlight.
Absolutely. You're painting a picture of your expertise and influence. But here's the catch-in about all those achievements. They need to be framed through the lens of national interests.
Right, of course. So it's not enough to just be impressive. You have to connect it back to how it benefits the U.S.
Exactly. It's like answering that unspoken question. So what? You got to show them how your work makes the U.S. better off, whether it's healthcare technology, education, whatever. Got to make that connection crystal clear. But, even with a rock-solid case and all the right evidence, there are some common traps people fall into.
That's true. Our sources actually have a whole section on these potential pitfalls, and honestly, I found it kind of fascinating. It's like we've all fallen into these traps at some point, right? Even outside of visa applications.
Oh, absolutely. We're all guilty of wanting to present the best version of ourselves, but there's a balance between showcasing your strengths and, well, just being real.
For sure. So let's break down some of these common mistakes. What are some of the biggest no-nos in the NIW process?
One of the biggest ones. Overselling the impact of their work. I mean, enthusiasm is great and all, but you got to make sure your claims are actually, based in reality.
So no saying, my work will change the world, without, actual proof.
Pretty much. Another mistake is forgetting to directly connect their work with a specific national interest. You could have the most amazing invention ever, but if you can't explain how it helps the U.S. in a concrete way, it kind of loses its power,
It's like you got to connect the dots for them. Don't just assume they'll see it on their own. Speaking of connecting things, what about storytelling? That's something we see mentioned in our sources a lot. Feels a little unexpected in this context.
You'd be surprised, but crafting a compelling story around your work, that can be really powerful. Remember those expert testimonies we talked about? Those are basically stories, right? Stories told by people who know their stuff and they're vouching for you and your work's impact.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's about taking those dry facts and figures and making them come alive, showing the why behind it all.
Exactly. Instead of just listing off your accomplishments, you're weaving them into a narrative. It lets the reviewers connect with you on a human level, see your passion, your drive.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you could give someone a list of ingredients, or you could serve them a delicious meal.
Now you're talking. But for someone listening who's thinking, okay, maybe this NIW thing is for me, what does all this mean for them?
That is a great question, because we've covered a lot, but it's important to bring it back to the individual, Frank.
For sure. If you're thinking about the NIW, you got to realize it's not a shortcut. It takes a lot of self-reflection.
It's about more than just getting a visa, isn't it? It's about identifying a problem that you, and maybe only you, can solve.
Exactly. It's about asking those tough questions. What am I passionate about? How can I use that to help the U.S.? And am I really the one to make that happen?
Those are big questions, but I bet the answers can be really powerful.
They can. And if, after thinking about it, you're confident your work fits with the whole idea of the NIW, then it's time to start building your case.
That's such a good point. This whole process might seem overwhelming at first, but it's about those small steps, right?
100%. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are resources out there, experts who can guide you, even a whole community of people who've been through this. Don't be afraid to reach out, ask for help,
Love that reminder. It's like building your own support system. And hey, speaking of knowledge and support, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to break this whole thing down, to make it a little less mysterious.
Well said. And as we get to the end of our deep dive, let's take a second to think about what we've learned about the National Interest Waiver. From who's eligible to the importance of evidence and telling your story the right way. It's been quite a journey.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of this whole National Interest Waiver thing. We started with this idea that, for some folks, their skills are so valuable to the U.S. that the typical visa rules don't really cut it.
And that's where the NIW comes in. It's like a special pathway for those people so they can skip that whole labor certification thing.
It's like having a fast pass, right? But to even get in line for that fast pass, you got to prove your work meets those three big criteria: substantial merit, national interest, and position to advance.
And we're not talking about just saying, you're great, you got to have the proof. Publications in top journals, patents for amazing inventions, those kinds of things.
I got to have those receipts. But then it's not enough to just have those achievements. You have to actually connect the dots for them, show how your work will benefit the U.S. specifically.
It's all about answering that so what question, You got to spell it out for them, how your work makes the U.S. a better place.
And how could we forget about storytelling? That's something we see a lot in our sources on this topic.
It's more important than you might think. Being able to take all that impressive stuff you've done and weave it into a story, that's what makes it stick.
It's like, instead of just reading a boring report, they get to experience it, feel the impact of your work.
Exactly. It becomes real for them. So to kind of wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to leave everyone with this. The national interest waiver, it's not just about getting a visa. It's really about recognizing that some people have the potential to change things. And if you think that might be you, don't give up. It's a tough process, but it can be so worth it.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, never underestimate what you're capable of. This journey might have its challenges, but the payoff, both for you and for society, can be incredible. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we hope you found this exploration insightful and empowering. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep on diving deep.